Howdy everyone on YouTube. Thanks for tuning into the MoveOTX Gear Review channel today. Got a fun review for us here. This time around we are taking a look at my UCO or UCO candle lantern. And that is the device you see here tucked away in its heavy neoprene wetsuit rubber protective case. I bought this entire, not the candles, but I bought this entire kit with one candle for $25 at my local REI store. You can probably find it cheaper than that, but it basically came as an entire kit with the case and a little reflective parabola dish here. It's got a glass window here to see and to let light in and out, and there's your wick. To take it apart and to light, and partially to light it as well, you simply unscrew the bottom, pull it out, and here's the top part, and here's your candle holder. Okay, to replace the candle you unscrew the base, and there's a spring-loaded mechanism in here. Gonna watch out, it'll pop out like a jack-in-the-box if you're not careful, but there's your spring. Shake it a little bit, there's your candle. So the candle that came with the kit is this white paraffin wax candle here, which I didn't use, I don't use. I already knew ahead of time I wanted to use beeswax candles with it, so I just bought a box of three beeswax candles here, and that's what I've been using. There's a metal plate here that you have to make sure stays with the assembly, and that's your little pressure plate, and that simply loads on like that. You stack on your spring. Watch out for the spring. It'll jump out if you don't hold on to it and make sure it's secure. And you simply tighten it up like this. So there's a viewport window there, so you can actually see how far down the candle has, or how far down, I guess, in this direction the candle has burnt off. Okay, just to give you kind of the heads up for that. But anyways, to light this candle, you simply slide the glass down, and there's your wick. I'm going to show you the most difficult way to light this, and that's with cheap Coleman camp matches. Okay, so this is easier with a Bic lighter. It's easier with a torch, with the torch. And actually, the torch here that I've got is part of the cleaning procedure, so you're going to want to stick around for that. So let's get to that later. But there's a million other easier ways to light this than with Coleman camp matches. So real stormproof matches, I think, would be way easier than this. But at any rate, strike your match. You light the wick. Give it a minute, and there it goes. It's starting away. Some of the benefits of burning beeswax versus paraffin. Beeswax, when you burn it in a beeswax candle, it emits negatively charged ions to the atmosphere, and that's what this thing is doing right now. We can't see it, but that's what it's doing. It's releasing negatively charged particles into the air. Those negatively charged particles will molecularly bond with odor molecules, with dust, microdust, microdirt, microcontaminant, smells and odors. Those negative ions will bond to, add mass to them together once that bond happens, and they fall back down, or they don't remain as airborne, or they draw themselves into the flame, into the candle itself. But it's definitely an odorless heat source. Okay, so that's one of the reasons why I definitely wanted to use natural beeswax, because I already know ahead of time paraffin wax, that sooty, kind of oily smell, I guess, that it comes out, it doesn't really appeal to me. So this does radiate, I think, 1900 BTUs of heat into your tent, and so for me, I've got a small quote-unquote two-man tent that I use as a single-man tent, but a volume of tent space that small, a little bit of heat from an additional heat source would go a long way to heat up my tent. So that's pretty much it there. I just so happened to get lucky and get the nice looking green, olive green colored one, but they make them in various colors. So there is the UCO candle lantern running a beeswax candle, and what you're looking at there is probably about a good 20 lumens of incandescent light. So I moved the lantern over closer towards the wall to, I think, hopefully better kind of show just how much light comes out of this thing. So now granted, it's no 300 lumen, 400 lumen LED blaster, but again, when your eyes are dilated, at least personally, when my eyes are dilated for nighttime visibility, and I'm dilated, wide open, I can totally use those 20 lumens very effectively inside my tent or inside my room here even, or wherever. And I'm totally good to go. So I'm going to zoom in a bit closer here just to show you. I'm not sure why my iPhone is doing this, but it's for some reason it's creating a ghost image of the flame up here. Believe me, I don't have flames spitting out the top of this thing. What you're seeing there is just a weird artifact or whatever from the iPhone. I hope it doesn't come out on video. I hope I'm just looking at that through my camera lens, through the camera here. I'm hoping it doesn't come out on video that way. But if it does, just know that it's a limitation of the iPhone itself. So let's zoom in closer and take a look at that flame. And what I want to show you here is the reservoir of molten beeswax that is the fuel for that wick. And so I mentioned earlier, when that wick melts down and that candle melts down, what you've got, because of the shape, the geometry of that dome candle holder there, what you've got is a nice reservoir of liquid fuel. And that's what this is. So one thing about it is the top plate here gets searing hot, probably 220, 225F, hot enough to instantly steam and boil water. So don't touch that. The rest of the lamp doesn't really get that hot. I mean, I can touch the glass surface here. I can run my fingers kind of around the bezel very lightly, and I'm not going to get burned or scalded instantly. Just avoid this top surface, the top surface here if you can. And on that note, I mean, there is quite a bit of heat coming out of this little source here. I let this run overnight, and good morning everyone. Here we are, and what you can see is the spring. Oops, let me refocus my camera. What you can see is the spring now has fully extended, and what you've got is that pressure plate that's moved from the bottom up to the top. And I can actually take all this apart and show you in better detail. The candle burned down from here to here. That was 11 hours, and I'm still going. So there's my flame, and I'm going to light my torch, and there you have it. So here we are. We're rolling into the 11th hour of running the UCO candle lantern, and I'm going to just keep timing this as that wick burns up and as that wax burns up here. So finally, after the 16-hour mark, that candle finally expired. And there you can see in there, there's very little wax, just some residue on the side. And to my surprise, the wax dripping that I noticed on my first candle didn't materialize on this one. And so again, when I had this candle and I was loading it, I was playing with the spring, kind of pulling on it. Just, I don't know, intuition or whatever, and I was pulling on it to make sure it was nice and springy. And I think by doing that, okay, I put a little bit extra force upwards on that pressure plate, okay, and even then, I didn't get a whole lot of wax dripping down in there. The first candle was completely coated on the inside with candle wax dripping down. And even then, I still got a little bit here on the side walls. You can see that in there. And let me show you how to clean this thing out. So if you get to this point, like I did, and you kind of let it cool down, you can easily just throw it on your campfire, hold it over maybe your camp stove, and get that wax to kind of loosen up a bit. Since I have neither of those here, I'm going to show you how I cleaned it out the first time using my torch here. So the first thing you want to do is try and remove some of that wax buildup and residue buildup around the spring. Okay, there's not a whole lot of it this time around, but there's just a little bit, and you can probably just wipe that off out in the field, but it's kind of gooey and sticky. So again, you could probably just hold it over your canister stove or hold it over a campfire, over your campfire coals, and I'm just going to light it up with the torch a little bit, and it just liquefies like instantly. See it kind of smoking a bit. So what you don't want to do is overheat the spring and melt the spring or anneal the spring. Okay, so just kind of heat it up, get it to smoke off a little bit, and the spring is obviously very hot at this point, so don't touch it. And see how it's kind of smoking? I'm not sure if you can see that, but it is smoking quite a bit at this point. And just basically burn off some of that wax. Okay, and it kind of turns black once it's burned off. Okay, there we go. So I'm going to let that cool. Can you see the smoke? I'm not sure if you can there. I'm not sure if my camera will show it, but nonetheless, there it is. So it is smoky in here, believe me. And I want to do kind of the same thing with this pressure plate in here. And to get that thing out, I'm going to have to kind of heat it up with the torch and just get that wax to flow a little bit more. So let's light my torch again. And obviously I don't want to burn my hand, so I'm trying not to do that. So I'm going to burn like the outside of it a little bit here and just kind of heat it up a little bit. For now I'm just using my bare hand, which is risky, I know. You could probably accomplish the same thing by just setting it in some your campfire coals or, you know, that kind of thing. But since I don't have that with me, okay, I'm just going to kind of shake it around. There you go. Trying to get it to kind of fall off without burning myself. And there we go. Okay, so the kind of cool thing about beeswax, as I'm learning here, is once it warms up, it's like water. It's really liquidy, like WD-40. And it's not thick or goopy or like toothpaste or whatever. So once it drains, it pretty much runs and keeps going. So the parts have cooled off now. They're still kind of warm, lukewarm, but the wax is still soft enough. I can just kind of buff it out and polish it out. And I'm just using a paper towel here. And I don't know how convenient this would be in the field. Quite honestly, you'd probably just want to reload your candle back up and put a fresh one in. But since I'm at home, consider this maybe after the camp out and I'm cleaning out my gear. Part of the, you know, routine maintenance kind of a thing. So there you go. That's what the inside of the candle holder should look like. And this pressure plate, I think, is pretty cleaned off as well. I don't have a whole lot of buildup or residue around this either. There you go. Okay, so we're going to reload a fresh candle. So there's all the wax that was on there. Okay, so let's reload a fresh candle in and get us ready for the next one in line. So drop a new candle in, put your pressure plate down, and like I showed you earlier, make sure your spring is pulled out. Give it enough force to properly seal out any molten wax and stuff, and that's pretty much it. Put it right back in the reverse order, and make sure your candle is springy enough to move back and forth, and simply tighten it back, and there you go. So that's everything I can tell you about the UCO candle lantern. And I think now we need to roll in a POU discussion. So what you're looking at here are usually the lighting options that I take with me. I may not use them all the time, but they fit different niches and different roles in my lighting system. And that's really what the candle lantern is. It's part of an overall illumination system that you have to man carry and pack carry with you. So let's just kind of roll through these a little bit. I mentioned earlier my zebra light headlamp. So this is my primary lighting option wherever I go. It's either loosely strapped around my neck or I actually wear it on my forehead or wherever, but this is my primary lighting option. And everything else kind of supplements this, okay, including the UCO candle lantern. So inside my tent I will also clip a Phoenix MC10. I have two gear lofts in my tent, one at the foot and one at the head. I'll simply clip this onto the loft and I can aim light wherever I need it inside my tent. Now, on my person, riding shotgun, so my Leatherman tool is my 4/7 cork AAT. That sits on my belt. This is always on my body everywhere I go. Late at night, I think a red light LED is almost a must-have for preserving your night adapted vision, and this is my go-to light. It has been for years. My Surefire A2 Aviator. It's a 2-mode light with an incandescent and a red, but I mainly use it for the red. And this actually sits in my pack, and I don't really use it a whole lot other than to illuminate my tent when I don't want to blind my night adapted vision. And along those lines, that's where the UCO candle lantern comes in. So what does an old school candle lantern do that all these other lighting options cannot? Number one, okay, it'll dry out the ambient moisture in your tent. So condensation goes away. Number two, it warms up the air in my tent. Okay, so cold air that you've got circulating and breathing through your tent to ventilate, you can warm that air up with a candle light that's this small. So that's a really nice thing to have as well. And the third thing, like I mentioned earlier, is it neutralizes odors and smells and pollen, airborne particulates and contaminants, okay, as I mentioned earlier. And these are all things that LED lights and even incandescent lights really cannot do by themselves. So I'm not going to show you competitive options for lanterns simply because I don't like lanterns. I see other kids using them, I see other hikers and backpackers with lanterns, and just for me, I really don't need to have the area behind my head illuminated wherever I go. All I really need is my field of vision illuminated, and I'm perfectly good with that. Okay, the fact that the UCO candle lantern hits on all these other positives makes it a part of my loadout. Okay, so thanks guys for sitting in through this Movo TX review. I apologize it's so long, but I really think, you know, a candle, it does so many things so well. There's really no way to talk about it without going on in detail. So hope you guys appreciate this review. I want you guys to remember, always have fun out there, stay safe wherever you go, and enjoy the outdoors, everybody. I'll catch you later. Thanks.